Hey guys, so today we're actually going to talk about I sold one of my cars. So if you guys did not know, I have multiple cars obviously. So and the new car is actually sitting right in front of me. But what car did I get rid of? So if you look, I have the Matrix still. I have the GR Corolla. But what other cars here? Is obviously the Turbo Corolla. So the only other car that would be missing would be the Tacoma. So I sold my Tacoma because really it was not a good family car. So if you guys own a Tacoma or whatever, the Tacoma really did not have a lot of rear space for any rear passengers, especially for a child in a car seat. It was okay, but it was not the best. So right here, right in front of me, is the car that we bought and its replacement. So let's take a look at that now. We actually sold the Tacoma for a Volvo. So you guys are probably wondering, why would I have done that? Because I really love Toyota. Obviously I have Toyota, and pretty much all my other cars that I've ever owned were Toyotas. But this was pretty much everything that we were looking for in a car, and it was around the same price as what the Tacoma was. So this is not a brand new car. By all means, this is a 2020 Volvo Xc90 with the T6 engine and a few other options and stuff like that. So this is actually a really nice car for what it is. Obviously, they're very outrageously priced when they're brand new, but Volvo is one that tends to depreciate quite a bit. So buying a used one, you can save a lot of money on it. But let's hop in the car and talk about why I bought a Volvo. Alright, so you guys are probably wondering, why did I buy a Volvo? Why did I trade in the Tacoma? And what was the reasoning behind it? Well, one of the biggest reasons were I never used the truck for truck stuff. We probably had the Tacoma for probably over 2 years, probably 2.5 years. And within those 2.5 years, we probably used it for truck stuff maybe 2-3 times. And what I mean by truck stuff is loading stuff in the bed that's bigger than the car and things like that. So we honestly never used it for what it should be. It was a really nice truck, had no issues, no anything. I loved the truck, but it just was not practical for a family vehicle. So that is why we were looking for more of an SUV than a truck or anything like that. And one thing that we were looking at was obviously just swapping the Tacoma for a 4Runner, because that's practically the same thing. But we were looking for more features, as well as something that was safer than most other vehicles. And that is when we came across Volvo, doing a lot of research on Volvos. I didn't see many issues with going with one of these Volvos, and that's why we kind of swapped to. Not only was it for safety, but these cars are actually fairly reliable. I know a lot of people would say Volvos are not reliable, but you do a lot of research. Volvos tend to use a lot of old technology and old engines, so they're not anything new. They're not anything like crazy different like what a lot of other Mercedes and BMW does. They don't really do that, and it's hard to judge if this is in the same luxury class as like a Mercedes and BMW and such like that, because I don't think Volvo really puts himself out there as a luxury brand, but since their cost is fairly similar to a Mercedes and BMW, they try to keep up with some of the luxury features that you would see in those cars. So, but with this car, I did not see any issues as engine-wise or drivetrain-wise. It all seems pretty bulletproof from what I have read. So if you're not familiar with the Volvo, this is a 4-cylinder engine that is turbocharged and supercharged. So there is some expenses to think about, obviously, for longevity. If like a turbo goes out or the supercharger goes out, obviously they're fairly expensive components, but overall though, it's a very simple engine to work on. So it's not anything out of the ordinary, it's not anything special. So it's just things like that, is just keeping up with maintenance will pretty much let these cars run for a decent amount of time. Some of you guys have seen this car in the background of some of my videos. I really haven't tried to hide it. I just didn't know if I was going to really introduce it on the channel or not. But I have seen some people ask me about it, and some people have asked me about the Tacoma as well. So this is kind of to clarify a few things. But if you guys would be interested in seeing any videos about this car, let me know down below. But there really isn't anything, obviously, modification wise on this car. There isn't a lot to do. Obviously, there's the aftermarket support on these cars is really not there. I mean, if we lived in like Europe, where the Volvos are like kind of like the Toyotas over there, like the Volvos are more like a Toyota in Europe versus here in America. Not many people own Volvos. So anyways, let's go talk about some of the features on this car. What sets this apart versus the Tacoma that I had prior. So this is a slightly newer car. My Tacoma was a 2017 and this is a 2020. So not that far apart in technology wise and stuff like that, but obviously there's slightly more features on this car than there were on the Tacoma. Alright, so hopping into the Volvo, you will see that it is actually a fairly nice interior. It's got black leather, perforated leather, and it has heated and cooled seats. So it's a very nice, you have a lot of options and stuff like that. So it has a full digital front dash. It's a nice screen, but it's actually very, very, very limited to what you can actually customize. It literally just shows you your speed, your tachometer, your speedometer, your mileage, your distance to empty time, and then in the middle, when I don't have the door open, it'll show navigation and all that. But other than that, you can't customize it. It's stuck pretty much where it's at. I think you can change some of the colors, but that's it. One other thing too that this car comes with is a heads-up display. So it's nice to have a heads-up display, but I'm not used to having one, so I don't look at it often, but it is cool that you get one automatically. One of the big features on this car is it has a really nice Bowers & Wilkins sound system. So it actually sounds really good. And I don't quote me on this, but I think it's a 20 speaker system. So I mean, there's 2 speakers on the door, or there's actually 3 speakers on each door. There's a subwoofer in the back. There's a tweeter in the front. It's amazing how many speakers are actually in this car, and it actually sounds very good for what it is. So for it being a big open space, it actually sounds like it was tuned decently. So one other big thing on this car is the drive mode. This car is specifically has Polestar engineered installed on it, so it's actually factory tuned to have, I think it's factory tuned to have like 15-20 horsepower and then like 10 to 15 foot-pounds of torque more than what the standard one is. So This car I think comes with around 320 horsepower and like 290 something or 300 foot-pounds of torque. A very even horsepower to torque ratio. But with that being said, this is a very heavy car. So it's like over 5,000 pounds. It is very heavy for what it is. Other than that, I mean, there really isn't. It has a decent infotainment center. It's very, very, very old school. So you can't really do much on it. You got Apple CarPlay, but you need to have a dongle for it to work wirelessly. I mean, you can check your cameras, all the other good stuff. So it has quite a few options, but very, 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 like I said, old school type of thing. It has lane keep assist and self-driving. Well, has lane keep assist and it has auto pacing or whatever it is. So that way, once you have cruise control on, it'll keep you a certain distance from the car in front of you. But other than that, I mean, that's kind of the whole cabin. I mean, you have plenty of space in the back. Let's hop in the back real quick and show you. But if we look in the back, this actually has a third row, which we've never used. It's kind of, for our family, it's not needed at all, but it does have a third row. But other than that, once you lay the trunk down, you have plenty of trunk space, which has actually came in handy for quite a few things, picking things up, fairly large items. Once you fold the other seats down, I actually went and picked up some flooring in this car, and it actually took it and handled it very well. So it is capable of doing truck things, but it's just doesn't have a truck bed. And it has the auto down. Then hopping in the back seats, obviously you can see a child seat, which is plenty of room. The car is very dirty, but I mean, sitting behind myself or anybody else, you have plenty of leg room in the back. It is a very, very spacious car. It has a panoramic sunroof and all the other good stuff that comes with it. One thing that I don't understand on this car, and maybe some people might understand it, but this car has quad zone climate control, which means that the driver, passenger, rear passengers can all have different temperatures, which I think is ridiculous, but it's an option to have on here. So, but I usually just keep everything at the sync button, so it just syncs all the temperatures. But yeah, back seats very limited. I mean, you get an armrest here, which is decent, but you get some pockets, and then like I said, rear vents here as well as here. So if you have rear passengers, this is actually a really nice car because you also have built-in sunshades, which is pretty good. But yeah, so that's the rear passenger. We have plenty of space for plenty of car seats. If you needed to have multiple car seats, you'd have plenty. But compared to the Tacoma, this car is actually a good family car, a good road trip car. It is just an all-around good car. So with the Tacoma, I mean, when I had my seating position where I wanted, like a car seat would be like, I mean, they would only have like maybe like 4 or 5 inches from the back of my seat. So, and I'm not even a tall person. I'm about 5'10". So sitting behind myself, you did not have a lot of room in the Tacoma. And that was one of the biggest things, is having a car seat and having some room. Otherwise, they just kick your seat and they don't, like, there's just not a lot of room at all to function. Versus in one of these, you have plenty of room. Fairly small engine. It's a 4-cylinder engine, supercharged and turbocharged like I was saying, but not a lot here. Volvo pretty much covers everything up to make it look cleaner, but your windshield washer fluid is there, and then there's no dipstick to actually check the oil. So not having a dipstick is fairly, it's kind of dumb, and I hate that automakers are doing this, but the only way to actually check it, and I have done an oil change on this car one time already, but there is a button to check your car status, which then will just show your oil levels. So pretty much this car takes 6 quarts of oil. So it's pretty much you drain it and then you dump in 6 quarts of oil and you're always there. So not too bad, but it is dumb that you can't just check it overall with a dipstick, but you have to use their virtual or electronic dipstick that they have in here. And same with tire pressure. Again, this is not a DIY car, that's for sure, but even tire pressure, it doesn't even tell you what your tire pressure is. It just says if it's good or not good. So, but other than that, I don't have any really faults on this car, other than I wish it was a little bit more DIY friendly, and I wish parts for this car were slightly cheaper than what it was. So driving this car, it's not bad. You can tell it is heavy, but it has a decent amount of power to actually get out of its way. So it's not terrible on that, but don't expect anything extraordinary out of here. I honestly think with the pull start engineered, I think they advertised the car at the mid to high 6s to 0 to 60, which I don't know who's racing these cars, but if you are, it has a okay acceleration for what it is. Having a supercharger and a turbocharger definitely gives you a much more linear power band, and that's what I kind of like about this car, is it's very, very smooth compared to obviously other cars that I've driven. Obviously naturally aspirated car is very smooth, but anything with forced induction, usually you always have something that will make it not as smooth. Obviously factory tunes the cars to be as smooth as possible, but also be fuel efficient. So, but we'll take the GR Corolla for example. It has good power, but as soon as it does hit full boost, you have a good decent amount of power increase, versus this car is very linear. You have actually quite a bit of torque on the low end, which is actually nice to have, like I said, with having the supercharger. But this car does drive like a big tank almost. I mean, it is heavy, but it does drive, to me, fairly stiff. But it also is stiff, but keeps a fairly smooth drive as well. So, and then like I said, this has pilot assist, so you can pretty much set it. It does keep you centered in your lanes pretty good, but you do have to touch the steering wheel every once in a while to obviously let them know that you're still there and you're paying attention. So, it works, I would probably say, it works good, but nowhere near as good as the Toyota system. Toyota's lane centering and like adaptive cruise control that they have is, I think, a little bit more finely tuned than this car. This car, like I said, it works good, but for some reason it loses the lines on the road every once in a while, and then you'll have to obviously just take control of the wheel. I know that's pretty much first world problems, but it could be better, but it still works very good. But yeah, so that's pretty much like the breakdown of why I bought the car, what this car is like, what it offers versus the Tacoma didn't offer as like a family vehicle. And all in all, I mean, it kind of leads back to also safety. Safety is Volvo's one of their top priority things, and it is a very safe car compared to many other cars on the road. So if this car does interest you, or let me know down below if this is something that you guys would want to see anything more of. Like I said, there is really not anything else that you could really do to this car, but because it pretty much comes good as is. But let me know down below what you guys think of this car. If you want to see anything about it, I think I might have one or two things that I might do depending on what it is, but I don't know. It's not really a car that I want to. It's more of a car that you buy and then you just enjoy it as is. There really isn't much you can do, and I think it actually looks pretty good for what it is. So, but let me know down below. Drop your comments. Let me know if you want to see a more full in-depth review on this car. We can do that as well. But with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys are new, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.